In this week's In-Ear Insights, let's talk about Threads, the topic that everyone in the social media marketing sphere has been a buzz about for the last 4 or 5 days. It is July 10th as we were recording this. Just yesterday, Threads passed 100 million users, the fastest growth of any social media marketing app ever in history. If you are unfamiliar, this is Meta, formerly Facebook, Meta's Twitter clone, if we're perfectly honest. It's a Twitter clone that is built upon the Instagram database and architecture. So it is essentially Twitter, but using Instagram's database. And for people who have been active on Instagram, when you join Threads, one of the things you're allowed to do is immediately just copy over the people that you were following on Instagram into Threads, which has given the app its remarkably rapid growth. It would not have achieved that level of growth otherwise. So, Katie, I saw that you have also joined Threads. What's your take on it? What's your perspective on it? What are you thinking about?
Well, I mean, the first thing is I'm kind of frustrated with Threads. Because it is tied to Instagram, and I treat my Instagram very different than I treat my Twitter account. Instagram for me is a private account, whereas Twitter is a more public business-facing account. And I find it frustrating that it's, you can't also, I think I saw you had posted, like, you can't delete Threads without deleting Instagram, which is like, oh, that's really sneaky of you, Meta. So I feel like obviously it's only about 5 days old as we're recording this. So there's still a lot to be seen of what's going to happen. But, my question, Chris, is why Threads? There have been so many other social media platforms that have been trying to take the audience away from Twitter. Threads seems to be the one that's doing it. Is it because it's, Mark Zuckerberg? Is it because it's literally almost identical to Twitter and tied to Instagram for ease of use? Or is it something else? Like Mastodon was having a moment, Blue Sky. There's a whole bunch of other ones that I'm sure I'm either forgetting or not even aware of, but why Threads?
Threads is succeeding because of the graph, because of the network, right? You have people's existing networks that they can port over, and as a result, it overcomes that initial hesitation of, okay, I've just joined a new social network. It's me and my 3 friends. Now what, right? And by having it import the Instagram network graph, it jumpstarts most people's experience. Now, one of the most interesting takes on this that I saw over the weekend was by YouTuber Bo of the Fifth Column, who is a fantastic channel if you like conversations about tech and a lot of politics. But he said one of the things that is interesting about Threads and the reason why Twitter has been so hard to dethrone is because of what's called proximity of power. The idea that on a network like Twitter, you could tweet at the president of the United States, whoever's in office at the time, and possibly even be noticed by that person or your favorite celebrities and so on and so forth. And Instagram has this to some degree as well in the comments, but not nearly as prominently as Twitter did. And what the magic formula that Threads is chasing after is replicating that proximity to power. It's one of the reasons why right now in the very early version, you'll notice there's an awful lot of people that you don't follow in the feed, and an awful lot of them are celebrities and pop culture notable names. That is to create that perception of proximity to power that the other networks like Blue Sky, et cetera, do not have, right? They do not have, Angelina Jolie's official, Instagram account now has a Threads account and so on and so forth. And as with every social network in the early days, you have the opportunity to interact with people you might not otherwise be noticed by, because in those early hours when an account first joins, the person or people running those accounts are like, oh, look, here's somebody we haven't seen or heard of before.
I feel like, though, as a Twitter user, the way that, so they rolled out a lot of features over the past, 6 months or so. And you have the For You and then the Following, like the 2 different versions. And I kind of feel like with Threads, that's a combination of the both, because you get the people that you're following, but then you also get these suggested accounts. And so I do feel like Twitter does this already, where you see a lot of people in there that you don't follow without the disclaimer like Instagram has of suggested for you, or because you follow this account, you might follow this account. To your point, it just sort of shows up of like, oh, am I already following this person? How did this get into my feed? Why is this here? And so, you know, for me, to your question of what am I thinking about, my first thought is, well, it's part of the Meta family of products, so I don't trust it. Um, obviously I can mark my account as private. I can choose not to participate, but because I have an Instagram account, I'm guessing that Threads already has my data, whether or not I signed up. Especially since one of the ways that you could sign up was by clicking within your own Instagram profile a numerical code that automatically brought you over. And it's just, from a business perspective, like if I were running those companies, like I get it. It's an ease of use. There is a very low barrier to adoption, but then also as the business, we can very easily collect the information we want to collect to make sort of like meaningful decisions. But from a consumer side, from a user side, you need to be aware of what's happening because they are 100% just taking your data, whether or not you've given it to them or not. And I know I should probably have my tinfoil hat on. I'm not going to do that today, but it's one of those things of like, it's the same conversation we've had about generative AI and using publicly available models in ChatGPT. You need to really be aware of what the terms of service are saying, how they're using your data, and what information you are willingly giving away.
Absolutely. One of the telling things should be that Threads is not available within the EU because it violates GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. As a result, what's happening is that all Meta apps essentially are funneling data from wherever they're operating back to Meta's data centers in whatever regions they operate in, and that data is being used by Meta. So yeah, there's anyone who's doing business with the Meta family of applications at this point, I would hope is aware that yes, 100% of your data that you interact with, with these applications is being funneled back to Mark Zuckerberg's companies, right? That's a given, and we see this even within the Threads infrastructure itself, right? The Threads infrastructure is built on Instagram. The reason why it's so easy to convert one account to another is because it's using the exact same user database. That's why you can't delete Threads without deleting Instagram, because it's the exact same singular database underneath. There's no abstraction layer. The same is true for the algorithm. The algorithm appears to be, based on my testing of it, my observations, and reading through Meta's AI system cards, it appears to be Instagram's feed mixer, right? So if you are unfamiliar, Meta has produced these things called system cards that are high-level documentation of the underlying AI for all of their family products, their legacy families, so Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. Threads isn't up there yet. But if you look at the Instagram feed mixer card and the components of its algorithm, and then you compare it to how Threads seems to behave, you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure they just reused this. They just reused it, which would be the smart thing to do. You reuse the code base you have, then you have to reinvent the wheel.
So I think we would be remiss to not touch upon the fact that it's a shiny new object, and you could see all of the jokes and memes going around all weekend of, check on your social media managers, they're not okay. Or, the CEOs who are asking their social media managers, okay, Threads, what's the strategy? So again, as we're recording this, Threads is about 5 days old. And I don't know, even the most agile of companies can't pivot their strategy fast enough, especially with something this new and this unknown. So, Chris, what is your reaction as you see people saying, okay, so Threads, we got to be there, we got to do something with it?
When you look at it functionally, it appears to be very similar to Twitter. And there have been some memes and jokes where, it's just take your Twitter strategy and do find replace Threads with Twitter. And that's not entirely incorrect, right? It's a text, it is a text forward platform. But like with anything that's new, you should probably figure out what it does and critically what's different about it than the Twitter experience that you're used to. What features are available, what features are not available. We have a long list, so things like it's a mobile app only. There's no desktop app, so you can't really use it from a browser. There's no API, so you can't plug social media management tools like Agorapulse or Sprout Social into it. There's no analytics. There's no data whatsoever about it. So if you're trying to measure things on it, you can't. There's no way to extract data from it. Although again, it uses Instagram's infrastructure, so it theoretically would be hard for Meta to make that information available. There's no advertising. The Guardian reports that it will be added free until end of year. Mark Zuckerberg said they will look at monetization and advertising when they hit 1 billion users. So whichever, I'm not sure which will come first, but it seems to stand a decent chance. There is no sorting of the timeline. There are no working hashtags yet, but Threads/Instagram head Adam Mosseri said those things are coming. They just rushed version 1 out the door. And my personal suspicion is that they rushed a limited feature set out the door to see how quickly the systems would crash under heavy loads, right? You release your MVP out the door, and you don't turn all the bells and whistles, so you can just see if your servers will stand up, which to Meta's credit, they have. There have been no, I don't know what the Threads equivalent to the fail whale would be, but there's been no fail whales in 5 days, despite 100 million users jumping onto a system that was previously tested with about 3,000, which, if for those who ever have a lot of gray hair, remember that in 2007 when Twitter made its debut at South by Southwest, they went from 20,000 users to 80,000 users in 3 to 5 days, and they just went belly up, right? There was a fail whale for days as they scrambled to try and build infrastructure. Meta came out of the gate with Instagram's data centers and servers and infrastructure, and so they've been able to hold up. So in terms of what you should be doing, yes, like everything, yes, jump in, right? Particularly if you have a company Instagram account, the first thing you should do is go over and set up your company Threads account and at least make a, hey, we're here. And then it's like any new place. Listen, pay attention, make notes, participate where it's appropriate. Don't do exactly what you've been doing in other places. Figure out what the culture is. It's like going to a party. You don't want to be the person who at the party, shows up and yells, "Hey, the party's here!" and everyone's just like, "Oh God, that jerk is here."
And yet people do that.
I've already I've gotten a PR pitches already about Threads in my inbox. I'm like, okay,
which is bananas, by the way. I don't think I've ever heard the term fail whale.
You were not on the early days of Twitter. So the fail whale was on the error message page was this giant whale being held up by birds. It was a drawing by a Chinese artist, and it said something is technically wrong. And so that was renamed. It was named the fail whale. From very early on. I think Twitter finally replaced it with a broken robot in like 2015, 2016, but it's part of early Twitter culture.
Yeah, no, I can't say that I was, I've had my Twitter handle for a long time, but was not actually active on Twitter until we started Trust Insights. And now, of course, me as the end user, when Threads showed up as something that people were all getting on board with, as opposed to some of the other social platforms that are in existence. My first thought was, great, one more thing that I have to have anxiety around of, am I keeping up to date on it? Do I know how it works? Where does it fit in for the company? Like, those are all the natural questions you should be asking. And, as the CEO of Trust Insights and sort of the stand-in CMO, I have no idea, because social media in general is not a strong channel for us. So on one hand, I'm not that concerned about it. We have our handle. We'll see how it plays out. On the other hand, is this an opportunity for us to rethink how social media works for us? But it's also still a Meta property. And for a variety of reasons, we decided that Facebook was not the right fit for us. I'm not convinced at least today, that Threads is going to be a game changer for us, especially since it's using the Instagram database. And the audience on Instagram is very different than the audience on Twitter, at least for us. And so, if that's the case, if that continues, I don't see that Threads is going to be a game changer for us at this time.
Yeah, I mean, it is weird and odd that Mark Zuckerberg has somehow become the billionaire we dislike least. You know, in this absolutely crazy oligarchy of billionaires and their tech companies. It's going to depend on how the Threads culture works out. Honestly, is it going to be more like Twitter? If so, then we might have a business reason to be there. If it's going to be more like Tumblr, which is a lot more personal stuff by people and very little corporate stuff, then there probably isn't an opportunity for us there. But it's too soon to tell. It's too soon to rush in. And yes, a lot of companies are jumping in, and you know, I saw Wendy's and a bunch of other major brands doing their usual good work on their feeds, but a big part also will be measurement, and right now there is none. The only way you can get any kind of measurement right now is if you are sharing links on Threads and you have properly applied tracking codes to those links. If you don't do that, you have no visibility whatsoever, because we tested last week when Threads came out, and when Threads when you share a link, it comes in as direct traffic. It comes in with no attribution at all. So there's nothing coming out of that app. So if you are on Threads and you're trying to see what the impact on your business is, you have to tag every single link that you share.
Which is not new advice. And I feel like, like we were talking about, with generative AI, new technology, same advice, same practices, same processes. This is no different. New social platform, new shiny object, new toy, same processes, same governance, same, data collection methods and, stringent rules around how you're tagging things. And so I guess that's sort of the takeaway, at least for me, is great. It's just one more thing for us to be diligent about if we want to see if there's any effectiveness. We can run our experiments and A/B tests like we do with anything, but we still have to have that plan up front and not do the panic move and just start posting a bunch of stuff and see what sticks.
Exactly. And I would say you should probably pursue the same two-pronged approach that you've pursued with things like Instagram and with things like LinkedIn, where you have a company account and a company page, and when company and business profiles become available, because they inevitably will, that's just the way Meta operates, you'll convert those profiles over. You will expect that the engagement will drop to 0 on that in time, because again, that's how Meta works. And then you will maintain the personal profiles of your employees and your team and stuff. And those will remain personal profiles so that, there's still some level of reach on there compared to other things. And I would say, I think there is value in terms of strategy of promoting your Threads account on Twitter, because again, 100 million people is kind of hard to ignore. Now, whether that growth rate continues, we'll see, but it's not a surprise to see it grow that quickly, partly because of the Instagram connection. I would say the majority because of the Instagram integration, but partly also because Twitter is just not a safe place to do business if you're a brand, right? There is so much content there that is brand unsafe, and your ads and your content showing up next to people who are literal Nazis is just not a place that you want to do business. Combine that with the absolutely insane things that have been happening recently, like, oh, we're limiting the number of tweets you can read per day. Like, let's rethink that. I think there is real value in cross promoting your Threads account to your existing Twitter account to move people over as much as you can. But beyond that, just experiment. It's a new place. So you get to decide what you want it to be, particularly as an individual. You get to decide what kind of experience you want on it. Maybe you you don't want to participate in a whole bunch of conversations. Maybe you do. I've found a lot of fun and interesting conversations and some new people to chat with in the last few days. So it's been very interesting for me, and I've enjoyed the experience so far. But I am also 100% aware this is a Mark Zuckerberg product. So we know the exact life cycle this is going to take. It's great at first, and then it will progressively get worse and worse over time until it's
I was gonna bring that up because I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of why we moved away from Facebook in the first place. It's, new label, same thing, same product, same owner, same privacy issues, same courtroom battles. You know, just because Mark Zuckerberg is the lesser of two evils doesn't make him any less evil in terms of, what he's trying to do with our data and the money that he's trying to make off of our backs. And so I am very skeptical of Threads because, we saw what played out with Facebook. I don't see that Threads will be any better. It just has a different skin.
Exactly. And it's interesting when I look at my own app usage. So if you look at app usage on your phone does keep track of this sort of thing. Threads has not cannibalized Twitter because I was spending very little time on Twitter to begin with. Threads has cannibalized Instagram for me. So I spend much less time on Instagram now. I spend that time on Threads. But the majority of my time, I still, at least according to my phone, I spend like 60% of my time on Slack because obviously work and stuff like that, and about 30% of my time on Discord. And those numbers really haven't moved. So that's where I'm going to continue spending the majority of my time. Which, by the way, if you want to spend some time with us on Slack, you can. There's a free Slack. Go to trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers.
Interestingly, because I do most of this stuff from my laptop, like Slack and other social, most of my time on my phone is spent playing solitaire.
Whatever makes you happy.
Well, it's not that I'm not active on Slack, but I am definitely one of those people that struggles because I have to use proper grammar and full sentences. It's easier for me to do it from my laptop than it is to try to type with my thumbs on my phone. And so I prefer the desktop experience to the mobile experience, which I know is not true for a majority of people. No, I do not want to hook up a keyboard to my phone. That is one thing too many. I'm not doing that.
I will say there are many keyboards that do have multiple Bluetooth connections. So you can, connect to your tablet, you can connect to your phone and things if you want to be able to type on a device instead of using your thumbs.
Which I appreciate, but it's not going to happen. It's not happening.
Yep. The one other thing I will say that Threads has going for it that Twitter does not is that Twitter has basically just abandoned any form of moderation. Like it's just a dumpster fire. Threads obeys the overall meta content policy, and they did not fire their entire trust and safety team, so like Twitter did. So Threads is inherently somewhat safer than Twitter is there. But yeah, I would say experiment, get to know the culture, listen more than you talk. Like it's generally decent advice. Still, make sure that you're investing in platforms that are ones you own or as close to own as possible. So that'd be things like Slack and Discord. Still make sure that you're investing your time in communications that are not interrupted by AI, like email newsletters and stuff. And just see how this all plays out. Make sure you're using good tracking codes. Make sure that you're not betting the farm on a meta property that will have a rug pull in 12 to 18 months.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so, Katie, where can we find you on Threads?
You can find me the same way you can find me anywhere else, at Katie Robert, but don't expect me to be super active. I'm not super active on Twitter. My Instagram account is private. So you can ask to follow, but chances are if I don't know you, I'm not approving you. And Threads is public for now, but I may also make that private because I'm not a social media person. I'm not great at it. I don't enjoy it. I'm very private.
You can find me at CS Penn, or you can find the company at Trust Insights. We're super watching that account real closely because we're still trying to figure out how all this works. The best place to stay in touch with us is over in our free Slack group. Go to trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers, where you and over 3,000 other marketers are asking and answering each other's questions every single day without the interference of either Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. And if you like this show and you want to get on a different channel, you can do so at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for watching today's show. If you liked it, please hit the subscribe button and bell to be notified when we publish new shows. If you want to catch all our content, including back episodes, subscribe to our free Inbox Insights newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Want to talk about what you've enjoyed? Join our free Slack community, Analytics for Marketers, at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. Need help with your marketing, data, analytics, or AI? Drop us a line at trustinsights.ai/contact. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.